Mr. Dinesh, Assistant Professor of Savita School of Law. I would like to extend my heartfelt of gratitude for everyone present today for accepting my invitation and who have gathered here at this webinar. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So today we have amongst us the guest speaker for today's evening, Mr. Rajashekaran, a chartered accountant and a qualified company secretary with over 7 years of experience to share his knowledge and help us bring out the best of interest in our lives. Welcome, sir. The topic for today's webinar would be an introduction to the permanent establishment of income tax laws. So before we begin, I would like to request all the participants to kindly mute your audios. And in case of any doubts, you can raise your hands and all the questions will be answered at the end of this session. So we can begin now, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So thank you, Savita School of Law, for the opportunity to conduct this subject, to this webinar and this topic. I hope it's audible now.
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
So there are two outcomes out of this session. Definitely, this concept is more confusing even now for many professionals, but one of the highly projected areas of future practice for chartered accountants as well as law professionals. Maybe you people who are going to come out of the law school as law graduates and going to pursue higher studies and career in law. And this pandemic season, which has started from March, I'd rather term it as a season, not a situation, because it's almost like if anyone is having any COVID-19, that becomes your normal person. So with this coming in, and we are using in this digital platforms and everything, the way the transaction is going to be taxed has undergone a lot of changes. For the past 2-3 years, I think India has been one of the largest consumers of e-commerce platforms and e-commerce facilities and digital hubs and digital technology. And the concept of physical presence is getting slowly eliminated, and even physical working spaces are getting eliminated. So how to tax these kind of transactions? They have brought in a lot of concepts right from early 2000s, when transfer pricing was introduced in a full-fledged manner, and slowly they have been bringing a lot of changes. And if you see in this past 1 year or more, you have a lot of private online portals like Unacademy, Udemy, whatever that have come, and there has been a large consumption of Netflix, Amazon Prime, etc., which have brought in digital content at our home. So a person, or let us take a company which is not having any presence in India, can still have some subscribers or some revenue generation in India. Because there is no presence in India, there are chances that it may escape taxation. So to address those things, constant changes have been brought into permanent establishment under this income tax law. Broadly under income tax law, one of the concepts is PE. So there are two outcomes. One is there is complete confusion, or otherwise there is some sort of knowledge which may pour in. Either is possible. So that depends on how well you are able to digest this concept. And I'll try to make justice out of this session. It is difficult to understand in the initial portion because this is a completely new area for all of us, including persons like me who are in practice for almost 5-6 years. But when you people come into practice as a legal professional, in case you're going to join an advocate firm or you're going to pursue in law, please bear in mind this is going to be the area of practice in taxation, especially those who are going to have interest in taxation. This is going to be one of the most lucrative areas of practice, or rather areas of professional career. In another 3-4 years, it is going to bloom like anything. It is going to open up a lot of issues. It's going to be a lot of Pandora box. It's going to open a lot of complications. Already it is complicated. You are only going to have more complications. It will have a very thriving career in respect of the law profession. So with that background, I'll just share my screen. I think host has disabled my screen sharing. If she could enable that, it would be ideal.
Sir,
Okay.
I've shared your screen.
Okay, but who will be moving it? Okay, fine. No, I thought I would share it. Fine. Okay. So can you just move to the next one?
Okay, sir.
And I make it a point to start my sessions with some sort of Tamil literature because we have almost forgotten this language more. So this is one of my most favorite literary works from Naladiyar. We all know Tirukkural, which is which is a couplet. This is a quadruplet, 4 lines we have. இம்மை பயக்குமால் ஈய குறைவின்றால் தம்மை விளக்குமால் தாமுலரா கேடின்றால் எம்மை உலகத்தும் யாம் காணும் கல்வி போல் மம்மரர்க்கும் மருந்து, which means the person who is sharing knowledge will always attain a sense of highness because he's sharing what he knows, and there is nothing like education and knowledge that removes darkness and ignorance. So the only thing or the major thing that brings happiness to the world is education or knowledge. So I request all of you at some point of time in your career to do some sort of knowledge sharing, whether in this line or in some other line, because it will help you grow as a person. With this background, I request Ansika to move to the next slide. So the next slide will be an introduction to PE. What is PE? Permanent establishment. It is a combination of 2 phrases. One is permanence, the other is establishment. Before going to the meaning, establishment from the context of business means a unit. Sorry? Can you just mute yourself? Okay, thank you. So, establishment in the context of business means a particular unit where some economic activity is being done. That is establishment. We have education establishment and everything like that, but from the context of business means some sort of a structured entity which undertakes an economic activity. Permanence means there is an assurance that it exists in the form of a structure. So that is permanence. So just going into the meaning, permanent establishment includes, the word they have used is includes. They have not defined permanent establishment. Rather, they have given an inclusive meaning to the word. Permanent establishment includes a fixed place of business through which an enterprise carries on a business activity, either wholly or in part. So there are 2 or 3 concepts which can be brought into existence. There is a fixed place of business. What is fixed place of business? That is not defined in income tax law. That is not defined in DTAA, but you can refer to the definition of fixed establishment under the GST law. You have the IGST Act, CGST Act and everything, where they define fixed establishment as a place of business where there is a sufficient degree of permanence with respect to a structure. So which means what they establish is there is an establishment, there is a structure, and it is going to be permanent, and from that structure business is carried on. It can be a building or it can be any property. So they are bringing in the concept, or they are stressing that there should be a physical presence to establish a permanent establishment. So to consider a location or a place as a PE, there are 4 basic tests to be satisfied. Some books use 6 categories. We will broadly restrict to 4. First one, the place must be in existence physically, which is known as the location test. So there must be a place. From that place, there must be some sort of an activity that should be carried on. The place must exist physically. That means a degree of permanence is attached to the presence of the structure. So they should exist, and there should be some activity to be carried out. What is that activity? Means a business activity. Remember, P is very important, mainly to determine income from business or profession. Certain aspects like royalty, fee for technical services, etc., whether or not there is PE, they will be taxed as per the treaty. But for business profits, that is profits arising out of a business activity, you need to establish the presence of a permanent establishment. Permanent establishment means simpla sonna, ஒரு ஆஃபீஸ் அப்படின்னு ஞாபகம் வச்சுக்கோங்க, அவ்வளவுதான். There is some office from where a business activity is carried out. So to consider a place as PE, the place must exist. Second one, there must be a business activity that should have been carried out in that place. The third one, the assessee, that is the person, should have the right to use that place or should use the place. The third is the disposal test or the usage test. The last one, the place must be used for a certain period of time. This is the test of permanence. சும்மா ஒரு பிளேஸ் இருந்து அப்படியே வச்சுக்கிறது கிடையாது. நான் வந்து அந்த இடம் இருக்கணும், அந்த இடத்த யூஸ் பண்றதுக்கு ஒரு ரைட் இருக்கணும், அந்த இடத்துல பிசினஸ் நடந்திருக்கணும், அண்ட் அந்த இடத்த கொஞ்ச காலத்துக்கு யூஸ் பண்ணிருக்கணும். There should be some sort of a time period, test of time that place should have passed in respect of ascertaining the permanence of that place. So 4 tests: the location test, the activity test, the disposal test, and the permanent test. 4 major tests. Idam 4. Okay. So why is PE essential? Again, so there is a fixed place through which business is carried out by an enterprise wholly or partly. There are 2 sections which cover this one. One is section 9, which is taxation, the scope of income that are deemed to accrue or arise in India. That is the first section in which business connection comes into play. Thereby a reference to PE is made. The next section is 92 capital F, which deals with permanent transfer pricing, where they have defined PE. Same definition, similar definition is adopted in the treaty DTAA. DTAA means Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. So in treaty, there is a specific set of articles which are given, which deal with specific topics. India follows the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development model, OECD model of treaty convention. United States follows the United Nations model of convention. Broadly, the text is similar. There are some minute differences, and there are some differences in respect of treatment of certain items. So Article 5 of DTAA generally defines what is permanent establishment, which we will see in a couple of slides. So
Excuse me. Please may I interrupt, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, can the host and you can handle the slides, sir?
Yes, absolutely fine. That will be better.
Okay. Okay, sir. 1 minute, I'll do it.
I'll just share the screen
Sir,
for a moment. Okay. Thank you, Hansika.
Okay, sir.
So when you consider the presence of double taxation avoidance agreement, so you have PE to refer in respect of taxation of business profits. Now, in case I have to tax under income tax law, which is through the presence of business connection gradually leads to establishment of permanent establishment. Okay. So without defining whether I have PE or not, you cannot tax a transaction. Why this is essential? Where a non-resident is generating income out of business in India, it has to be proved that there is a nexus between the income earned and the activity carried out in India. To establish that nexus, you have to establish that he has a permanent establishment. This is the most important point in establishing PE. With this in background, I'll move to the next slide. Since this is introduction to PE, I'm not going to go into too much of information. I'll just keep it very simple. Okay, please keep all your questions at the end. You can ask one by one. Now, why is PE important? As I said earlier, it is the most essential criteria to determine whether to tax the income of a non-resident in India. And you know the scope of total income under section 5 of income tax law. It states that non-resident is taxable only in respect of income earned in India. That is the very simple interpretation. So non-resident is not taxable in respect of global income, whereas residents are taxable in respect of income earned in India or outside India, outside Earth, whether the income is earned in Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, etc. Moment you become a resident in India, you keep in mind that you have to set up 35 to 40% as income tax out of your income. Okay. Then the first one, For a non-resident, if he earns any business income from India, you have to see whether there is nexus to tax that income. That is the first part. Next, when you earn any income, or rather when you make any payment to a non-resident, you have to deduct tax at source, commonly known as TDS. For non-residents, it is termed as withholding tax. So, especially for business profits, in order to claim DTW benefit, you need to establish there is a PE, and out of that PE, business profits are earned. Only then withholding tax will come into picture. This is one part. Now, with digital transactions and digital economy coming into play, which is also known as the virtual economy, PE has given rise to the concept of virtual PE or digital PE, termed as significant economic presence. What is SCP? We'll see in another few moments. Then, one important impact which comes through some other law is the levy of GST through the presence of PE. See, there is a concept called a non-resident taxable person under GST. There, non-resident taxable person means a person who is a non-resident who occasionally or casually undertakes supply of goods or services in India through a fixed Okay. So, how do I determine a business connection? So, there are two broad headings under which you can study this. One is whether the agent, I'm using the word agent here because person acting on behalf of non-resident is treated as an agent. The term used now is a DAPE, D-A-P-E, dependent agent permanent establishment. Okay. So, the person who represents the non-resident has the right to conclude contracts on behalf of the non-resident in India. In that case, he will be a business connection. So where there is a right to conclude contracts, immediately the concept of DAPE comes into play, which is dependent agent P. So thereby, naturally, he becomes a P. Now, when there is no authority to conclude contracts, then the agent, that is a person who represents non-resident, merely maintains stock of merchandise, or he habitually secures orders wholly or mainly for the non-resident. In both the cases, he is working for the non-resident. He maintains the stock belonging to the non-resident from which he is supplying the goods to the clients of the non-resident in India. This is one scenario. The other one is he secures orders in India for the non-resident. Now, we have to study this under 2 points. One is he only maintains the stock of merchandise belonging to the non-resident. So, he's merely maintaining the stock of the non-resident, and to the clients of the non-residents, he supplies on behalf of the non-resident. This is one part. The point here is the concept of exclusivity and the concept of dependence. If I only operate for one single non-resident, I am become an exclusive agent, thereby I become a P. If I operate for multiple non-residents, I have to see to whom I am operating on a majority basis, or if I am controlled by multiple non-residents who are belonging to the same family. Take for example, related party. So in that case also, P will get established. The second part is even more important. Habitually secures orders in India wholly or mainly for the non-resident. There are two parts here. One is habitually secures. The word habitually is more important here. So my main habit or the way I do the business as a habit is to secure orders in India. For whom? There are two wings here. One, I wholly secure order only for the non-resident, which means I exclusively operate for the non-resident. Number one. Number two, second category is I operate mainly for the non-resident. Take for example, I am a I am an agent of 3 or more non-resident. Let us take, for example, 5 non-residents, out of which 65% of the orders I secure are only for non-resident A. The balance 35% is split between the other non-residents. In this case, the determination of business connection is further expanded by the rule of control, which will be in the next slide. So, whether I am an exclusive agent or I am the main agent, that also determines how business connection comes into picture. So, wherever dependency and exclusivity come into play, naturally PE will get established. But where exclusivity takes a hit, it comes into a different phenomena, then you need to be careful. So the authority to conclude contracts can be in respect of any supply of goods or supply of services, or any transfer of title in a property by owned by a non-resident merely to sell the property, or transfer of right to use a property or belonging to a non-resident. For these 4 main activities, I may get the right to conclude contracts, mainly for the first part. Now, where I habitually procure orders mainly for the non-resident, I establish business connection based on control. So, when I am exclusive to one particular non-resident, PE gets established by default. Whereas I operate for multiple non-residents, I have to undergo the test of control. So, whether I am controlled or whether the non-residents are controlled, or whether the non-residents control some other person, we need to see. So, where person acting on behalf of non-resident secures orders mainly for the non-resident, then business connection gets established if the non-residents control the main non-resident, or such other non-residents are controlled by the main non-resident, or both the main and the other non-residents are subject to a common control. Let us take a simple example. There is a person called A who operates for Mr. B and Mr. C. Okay, I need to change this example actually. I'll change and send the material. A acts on behalf of B, who is a non-resident, and also secures order for Mr. C, who is another non-resident. Okay, so I need to see if B is controlled by C, or C is controlling B, or both B and C are controlled by some other person, or alternatively, A is also controlled by the non-resident, or B is controlled by C, or both A, the agent, as well as the non-resident, B is controlled by a common non-resident. There are multiple ways through which this control can happen. Okay, so naturally, if you see, there is a very simple mechanism to understand. The person acting on behalf of the non-resident is subject to some control of the non-resident by default. So who controls who? Either both the non-residents control each other, or both the non-residents are controlled by some other person. This is what you need to identify in respect of this one. Okay, so this simple chart will do. Test to establish a dependent agent permanent establishment is he habitually concludes contract, or he habitually concludes orders, or he plays a major role in concluding orders or contracts. What is this major role in playing a conclusive part in the concluding orders and contracts? We will see at the end. There is one part we need to see here. Then the test to establish business connection is, one is the dependency for business on the non-resident. The other is exclusivity of operations. That is, I operate exclusively for the non-resident, or I secure order mainly for the non-resident, or is subject to some sort of control through the non-resident or by a combination of non-residents. Okay, so this is one part you need to understand. These are the tests to be followed. So why should I establish business connection is 95% of the cases, if I establish business connection, PE comes into existence. This is the shortcut. Though there may not be in some other cases, but majority this will happen. Okay, so what are the types of PE? One is a construction PE, that is a building site construction or an installation project constitutes a PE if it lasts for more than 12 months, 6 months as per UN model. Then service PE. So service activity is carried out for more than 183 days in any of the 12 months commencing or ending in the concerned previous year. So இந்த வருஷம் வந்து அந்த சர்வீஸ் ஆக்டிவிட்டி ஸ்டார்ட் ஆகுது லாஸ்ட் 12 மந்த்ஸ்ல என்ன நடந்திருக்குன்னு பார்க்கணும் ஆர் நெக்ஸ்ட் 12 மந்த்ஸ்ல ஒரு 183 டேஸ்க்கு மேல இட்ஸ் ஆக்டிவிட்டி இஸ் டன் இன் இந்தியா ஃபார் த ரெலவென்ட் ப்ரீவியஸ் இயர் வெதர் கமென்சிங் ஆர் எண்டிங் இட் will establish as a PE. Then agency PE we just saw a little while earlier, the DAPE concept. Then insurance PE, collection of premium and ensuring the risk situated therein through the insurance contract. Sorry, through a dependent agent. Okay, this is one part. Again, the concept of DAPE comes into play. However, insurance PE does not include reinsurance PE. Okay, now coming back into the concept of virtual PE or significant economic presence. There is a concept called BEPS, base erosion and profit shifting. This was introduced sometime in 2015, but it has been already in existence in United States a long back, known as the divisible profits tax. So this came into picture mainly because of the decision in Vodafone Holdings in 2001. That is, the profit you earn in India must compulsorily be taxed in India, whether or not you have a presence here. The other thing is, due to the e-commerce transactions and the presence of Google and everything, so they decided to tax the digital transactions. For example, in UK, Google had escaped almost, I think, 180 crores odd taxation because it did not have a presence there. I think I'm only giving a very estimated figure. It should have been more. So OECD decided to bring in a mechanism to tax the digital transactions, and they introduced the concept of significant economic presence. That is, the word they are using is economic presence, not mere physical presence or digital presence. So you may not be physically present in a territory that is a country of source, but you have so much of economic activity getting derived out of such country, then you are bound to be taxed in respect of the income tax payable on such transactions and the revenue generated. This is still in the nascent stage. They are yet to notify the threshold limits. Why SEP was introduced, the Memorandum to Finance Bill and the OECD commentary state these four as the main objectives. Align the taxation of business profits on account of economic presence. That is, we saw a little while back that P requires the presence of physical structure, that is a degree of permanence. They are slowly eliminating that condition. One, then expand the tax base so as to cover the digital transactions and also to share a portion of the tax revenue to the source country. Because if you look at the treaty double taxation avoidance agreement, most taxation would go into the country of residence, that is the country from which the that person, the non-resident, is residing, and for the tax he pays in the source country, he was claiming foreign tax credit there. So to eliminate such kind of loopholes and to ensure that tax does not leak in the present system, they also framed this one to ensure that some source of tax revenue gets allocated to the source country. This is with respect to the principle for ACP. Now, what are all the types of ACP, significant economic presence? So explanation 2 capital A to section 9(1) defines what is a significant economic presence and how you should determine the SCP. So any transaction in respect of any goods, services or property carried out by a non-resident in India, including the provision of downloading data or software in India. So this is one. The next one is activity based, systematic and continuous soliciting of business activities or engaging in interaction with users through digital means based on number of users for such transaction. The first one deals with transaction, the next one deals with activity. Okay, so the first one, any data download, any software download, you download any games, you carry out any transaction in respect of any supply of service without having any presence in India, still you will be subject to taxation. Take for example, let us take Netflix. Netflix does not have a presence in India, it is still operating from outside India, so those will get covered under this one. The next one, activity-based SCP, is you are engaging in continuous business activity or interactive activity through digital means. Education is another area where this will come into play, because with all these virtual conferencing softwares coming into play, the boundaries in respect of geographical aspects have completely been removed. So there is a chance that a person who is residing outside India takes class in India or any education venture in India, still he escapes without paying any tax because there is no presence in India. So based on these things, they decided to introduce this SCP. First one is based on specified aggregate amount to be paid for such transactions. The next one is based on revenue per users, number of users who interact for such activity through digital means is the basis to determine SCP. They are yet to notify what is the quantum and how to determine the number of users. This is just a conceptual idea which is there. The next one, extended agency permanent establishment or EAPE. This is almost toward the fag end of the session. Just some 5 or 10 minutes remains. So, the concept of DAPE gets created when an agent exercises the authority to conclude the contract. The stress was that the agent should play a full role, that he should be able to conclude all the activities or all the conditions to a contract. Only then he will be considered as a DAPE. Now, EAPE was introduced to ensure that even if the agent plays a major role in concluding the contracts on behalf of the non-resident, he will be deemed to be a dependent agent PE. Okay, so past la pathing abdina, and the agent, that is a person who is acting in India on behalf of non-resident, must play a complete role, full role. Avardan contract conclude panni and the terms fix panni kuduthu ellam pandrathu avardan. அப்படி பண்ணினா மட்டும்தான் அவர் பிஇயா வருவார் அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இருந்தது. But because of this concept, even if he plays a major role in concluding some of the terms of the contract, and those contract terms are not subsequently altered, there is no material modification by the non-resident, then he becomes a digital agent permanent establishment. So they are deeming it. Okay, but still, OECD commentary states that all elements and details must be concluded by the person acting on behalf of the enterprise, that is the non-resident. But the Indian tax law is taking a stand that even if he plays a principal role or major role, he shall still constitute as a permanent establishment. Some dispute is still going on between OECD and India. India has tried to bring in more flexibility into this taxation. That is more complications. அப்பதான் நம்ம சம்பாதிக்க முடியும். ஓகேவா? So அந்த ஒரு ஆஸ்பெக்டும் இதுல போயிட்டு இருக்கு. மூணாவது, this concept of equalization levy, which was introduced through the BEPS action plan. This BEPS action plan is nothing but it was introduced to modify the entire approach to international taxation. One is the amendment to the definition of PE. The demonetization and all are part of the BEPS action plan only. So it is not simply one government taking a decision. It is a conglomerate of economic bodies which take a decision. This is one. Then the third is the BEPS action plan introduced or taxing some transactions at a fixed rate, which has been introduced in India as equalization levy to tax certain digital transactions. Okay, so these all are part of one single framework. So by this extended agency permanent establishment, if an agent of a non-resident plays a principal role in concluding contracts on behalf of the non-resident, he shall still be deemed as a permanent establishment. What are the repercussions? We don't know. Let those provisions be notified. Yes? Just mute yourselves, please. Then, what are the issues connected with PE? Now, mere presence of a website need not constitute a PE. This is one part. This has already been downloaded. This has already been discussed by court also. It was mainly for TDS deduction for Google in respect of advertisement charges payable. So, court triggered a situation that if a web server is located outside India and any activity is done through that server, there is no PE in India. Therefore, any payment made out of such activity that shall not be subject to any tax in India. Currently, they have nullified it by introducing equalization levy. Now, let us take this example of Netflix. And even you see Alibaba.com, which is AliExpress, which is from China, where you can get a lot of international products. AliExpress does not have a presence in India. There's another website from China which is known as TomTop. They don't have any presence in India. They have their servers outside India. They have customers in India. So thus far they were escaping taxation. But now, because of this SEP presence, they will be attracting taxation in India. This is the significance of virtual PE. Then, the mere presence of holding subsidiary relationship does not constitute PE. Okay, simply because there is a holding company, there is a subsidiary company, there is no PE. There must be an activity and authority, and it should satisfy the test of PE to be considered as a PE. Okay, then another issue is a mere license office, which I explained earlier, merely for communicating, interacting with customers, mainly information collection, then that shall not constitute a permanent establishment, which has again been decided in the cases of UAE Exchange and Samsung Heavy Industries. So, suppose I download any software. Take for example a Linux distribution called Ubuntu is there. Ubuntu does not have any presence in India, but we can access this software through their Ubuntu website as a free download. Linux is an OS. Okay, so thus far there is no presence in India. It was escaping taxation. Linux is generally free. This Ubuntu Linux is generally free, but if you are going to use for business purposes, then there is some sort of fee you need to pay. Now, because of SEP being introduced, this transaction may trigger taxation. Okay, so I have no physical presence, but in case this distribution attracts certain number of users being downloading the content, and it crosses the threshold limit for number of users, and there is a revenue per user concept which comes into play, then it will constitute as PE. Again, there is a concept of OIDAR in GST, Online Information Database Access and Retrieval Services, which also considers downloading of digital content and etc. Those two concepts are aligned together. So for the next session, if I take anything on GST, we'll discuss on OIDAR also. Okay, these are some of the major issues which are connected with PE, which are okay for your level of this session. So that brings us to the end of the session. Any questions? I was just too fast, I know, but the time given is very short. Usually in my classes, what is PE alone will take 1.5 hours. So, any questions?
Students having any questions or queries can ask right now. You can unmute yourself or you can type it in the comment box, so we'll clarify your doubts. Sir, I actually have a question, sir.
Yes, please.
So you told us like initially physical presence is essential, and then later on SEB was there, and so
that is a
yeah, only if the act. Yes, sir. So when was the amendment brought in, sir?
They brought in this digital presence amendment in 2018. Okay, SEP was introduced in 2018, but they didn't give the threshold limit or how to determine the SEP for certain transactions. For example, I gave a table that based on number of aggregate payment made or number of users. That is still not yet decided even by OECD. Probably by next year they are going to introduce it.
Okay, sir. So is there any other students would like to clarify? Sir, I guess the time limit is also about to end. Shall we wind up the session?
Yes. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll finish it, then you can finish it. Okay. Let's not be too formal. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is a tough topic to understand, to grasp at the initial stages. But if you have an interest in tax laws and if you find time, you just go through these things. There are a lot of materials available in the internet. So any doubts, you can just contact me on this subject. Thank you for the opportunity, Hansika. And I hope there is some sort of knowledge I just passed from what I know. Okay. Yeah, you can take over.
So first I would like to thank you for accepting the invitation and presenting to us over here, sir. We did get a very vast knowledge about income tax. Apart from our syllabus, this was a very new concept which we would like to incorporate in our day-to-day life, sir. So
You can never
you've told
incorporate
us
in your
about
day-to-day life.
So you've told us about the non-resident taxability and then the types of PE and types of SEP also. And you also compared it with the previous laws as well as the current laws with the help of case laws, which would be very useful to us. So thank you so much for making it understandable for law students like us, sir. And hope you did enjoy the session, sir. And
Yeah,
I would
I
like to
enjoy.
thank participants also
I
for
only pity the
participating.
students who listen to this topic because it's
Sir?
like one big confused noodles. Okay. Thank you. All the
Thank
best
you,
for
sir.
everyone. Please stay safe and please enjoy this phase also being at home. Probably if you come to college, you may not be able to enjoy this phase.
Our colleges are functioning right now, sir.
Okay, I leave it to the Almighty. Okay. Thank you. All the
Okay.
best. Have a great
Bye.
evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.